there's three outside cuts that I teach my students on a side. Let me put this up a little bit on a side grain bowl. Let me see if I can, hopefully I can get it over. Everybody can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the first cut is a draw or a pull cut. We put the top blade, right, a quarter of an inch away from the wood. We put the handle of the tool on our hips and we draw the handle around with our hips just like this. We draw it around. That is a standard pull cut. And this is okay for shaping. But the problem is, on a side grain bowl, we're coming from to the top, which is correct, but the way the blade and the wood are joining violates the first rule of wood turning. Wood can never come into a blade of a wood turning tool because it's always a scrape. So if we have a side grain bowl, we can do this, but when we come around, can anybody see that right there? When it comes off the end grain where it's all fuzzed up?
Yep.
Okay, so that shows that it's a scrape.
Yes.
The second cut that you have is a shear scrape. So now you roll your bowl gouge upside down so that the top blade is only a 64th of an inch away from the surface of the wood. And you're going to be cutting with the bottom blade. And you're going to drop the handle down as far as you can and put the end of the handle on your hip. So now when we look, I don't know if the camera can get in there. Let's see. So now let's look at it from the bottom. So now if I look at the blade on the bottom, it's now in line. The blade is totally in line with the rotation. So let's go back right here. And I'm going to put the top of the blade a 64th of an inch away from the wood. And I'm actually cutting with the bottom blade. So now when I cut with the bottom blade, this is called a shear scrape. Now instead of the powder, I'm now going to get angel hair. And again, we're going to draw it with our hip. We never move our left. We don't draw it with our left hand. We only draw it with our hip. Here we go. We're a 64th of an inch away. Now watch, there's going to be angel hair coming off of there.
There's fine cuts.
So now when we turn the lathe off, where we had all that fuzz on the end grain, now look at that end grain. It's just a very, very little bit of fuzz, right? You could sand that out really cleanly. But we all know that that's not the final cut that we make on any side grain bowl. We always make a push cut from the bottom all the way up to the rim. And if we do a push cut, we will then we will slice the wood. Let me just take this right here. Oh, here's a good point. Let me go get my bottom feeder just a minute. Okay. Down at the bowl, if we have a bottom, I'm gonna move my thing just a little bit. I'm gonna make, let me make a little bit different shape here, so I'll show you how this works. So now if I take my regular bow gouge and I have to make this final cut and I have a curve out for the bottom, if I have a curve out for the bottom like this, and I have to go make that final cut from the bottom all the way to the rim, then what's gonna happen? My tool is now gonna hit the tailstock and I can't ride the bevel with my tool because I can't move it around if it's between centers. If it's, once it's on a chuck, right, or it's on the cold jaws or something like that, then I could make that final cut. But here my tool is hitting the tailstock because the angle on the bow gouge is wrong. Right? But
Yep.
what if I have an 80-degree angle on a bottom feeder? With the 80-degree angle on my bottom feeder, right, now I can turn that tool up through that cove and it never touches the tailstock. So we take our bottom feeder, right, and we go in here and we roll it down just a little bit. So we put that blade, I put the blade down in line with the rotation. And now I can make that little cove cut. I can absolutely slice it. And then when I get out here, I can do what? I can then take my regular bow gouge. I'd have to go up a little farther. I'll take it up a little farther. Let me do this. I'm gonna make this more of a bowl shape. I've got a reverse in here. Turn up the speed a little bit. I'll just do this. Okay, so now we'll go in, we'll take that bottom feeder and we're gonna do a push cut so that we have no tear out whatsoever on this outside of this bowl. And now I'm just gonna take that, I'm gonna come around. See if I make that a little smoother. Now, if I want, I can turn around, I can transition to my regular bow gouge because the tailstock's not going to interfere if I have it between centers. Now we're going to do our final push cut.
All along tool handle is down.
Go. Let the tool do the work. Let the tool eat itself through the wood. Don't try to manhandle it. Now, when we look at the surface, right, you can see we've got just a little bit of fuzz right there. So how would we get rid of that last little bit of fuzz? Anybody know?
You're gonna do a shear scrape?
Nope.
one final push cut.
No, we're gonna do another push cut, but we gotta do something different with this push cut. Anybody
Orbital
have
sand with 800 grit.
what?
Orbital sand with 800 grit.
No.
Nope.
Ask nicely.
Here
Okay,
we
Mark,
go.
what are you gonna do? What do we do here?
Here's what I'm gonna
Please.
do. I'm gonna let you guys look at where this fuzz is, and all I'm gonna do is go over to the grinder and put a fresh burr before I make the final cut.
Yeah.
Ah.
Fresh bird.
Put a burn line in there.
Resharpen the gouge. What he's saying.
It'll take me a half a second here.
Nope, go ahead. That was the obvious. I don't know how we missed that. Even when certain ones I was preach it all the time.
Last cut should be on your fresh edge.
Right? How'd we miss that, Eddie?
I don't know. I thought he was gonna pull the trick out of his bag. You know, that's.
I know, right? That's
But
what I thought too.
he went back to pure D basic wood turning.
Back to basics. Yes.
You went
Your
back
last-
to kindergarten.
It's amazing how the basics are still good.
Right, all we've done, we never, well, I teach my students to never, ever, ever make a final cut on anything without putting a fresh burr on your tool. Sharp tools, tiny bites, how slow can I go? The mantra of a wood turner. Okay, here we go. So now, all I've done is put a fresh burr
Mark,
on.
move your camera, move your camera. We can't see it.
What,
Right there.
There you
All
go.
right, go back out. Right there.
Right.
Not right.
you see that?
One more time.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Right there.
Okay. All right, so now we're just gonna join where that fuzzed up there. All right, now watch the difference.
And it's an absolute push cut, correct?
Right now, I just want to do this to show you the difference. You see right here where I did the push cut, but it's still fuzzed up a little bit. Now look at this. Absolutely pristine. Right, so now we can do our 400 and our 800 and our 800 in random orbit. So
There we go.
sharp tools, tiny bites, and how slow can I go? Let the tool eat itself through the wood. And I will guarantee you, right, if you practice keeping your tools sharp like that on a final cut, it saves you hours of sanding.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
so use side grain. On side grain bowls, try to use a recess as much as possible. And on end grain bowls, use a tenon. And make yourself that little tool, right? And it will be a little gem. Every time you have to make a recess, it's just automatic. You don't have to think about it. Just every now and then sharpen it up. And it will be totally safe. And you're not trying to, maneuver around the tailstock that's up there. That's what I wanted to say. This is the way I do it. I know there's a lot of other ways that you've seen on this Worldwide Wood Turners, but that way you're going to be totally safe if you're in there with that little recess tool.
Good
Thank you
advice,
very much.
Mark. Excellent demo, and thank you for coming in to do that tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.